Good morning, Chicago. You're listening to Inspirational Perspective. I'm your host, Linal Harris, Chicago's very own life coach, right here on WVON 1690 AM, the talk of Chicago. Inspirational Perspective on your radio is all about murdering mediocrity and living the best life possible. So as I ask you, every Sunday morning, are you living the best life possible? And this is the place to be to explore that possibility. Well, happy Sunday, everyone. Definitely happy and blessed to be back in the studio this morning. And let me tell you, we had a phenomenal show last week. And I want to pick up where we left off in terms of identity. Identity, the missing link to power, part 3. And one of the things I want to do to start off the show is, if you remember last week, I said, okay, this week we would begin to talk about vision. So the power of vision, number one. And then also potential, right? So how does a person tap into their potential? So if we have a seed of greatness, if we're great, then how do we tap into that greatness? What is the formula? What is the recipe for tapping into greatness? So we'll talk about that. And I'm excited to talk about that because, the conversation we've been having has been, wow. Just enlightening. I listened to this show over again from last week, and just the questions and everything that you all have brought to the show has helped so much, so thank you for that. Unfortunately, too, my technical producer told me that the phone lines are currently down. So maybe they'll be back up by the second hour. I'm not sure, but if you do have questions, we are live on Periscope. We are live on Facebook. And so you could definitely use those mediums to ask your questions. Emmanuel Leonard is in the studio this morning, so he'll be checking out those two mediums and letting me know what questions are out there. Good morning, Emmanuel.
Good morning.
So happy to have him here to assist and share. As a matter of fact, I want to know what you think about this conversation of identity, because, and by the way, Emmanuel's typically here, right? He's here. He's supporting me in multiple ways on Sunday mornings. And one of the ways Emmanuel can support me too is because he is listening with a different ear, right? One, he understands the work that I do on the back end, but also a human being, individual, right? Who, can take advantage of a lot of the work and the conversations that we have. So I'd love to know from you in a moment, right? What you think of this identity conversation and how it's had an impact on you and how you think of your identity, right? And this is not the first time you've heard this.
Yeah.
But just overall. And if there are any questions, like anything pop into your mind, right? Because you're constantly not only listening to the show, but then reviewing the show, editing the shows, etc. Right? So I'm going to come back to that in a moment. But good morning to all of you. Again, happy Sunday morning. Thank you for being here. Thank you for tuning in. I appreciate it. Do not take that for granted. And, last week I started. I'm going to start the same way. Today I choose progress because the commitment is progress. And so I hopefully, as you've been going throughout your week, you've been experiencing progress. Progress, hey, not perfection, because we're human beings and that's impossible, but progress, that we can have. And that's what this show is all about, right? The commitment to progress. So, where we left off last week, we talked about identity, right? But there's a couple of things I want to bring back up and bring it back into the conversation. One is this notion of being a creator. Because when I listened to the show, I thought about it. I'm like, okay, so I just kind of came out and said, you're a creator, right? And I don't know that we dived deep enough into why part of the identity that we all have as human beings is the identity of a creator, right? And because we have the identity of a creator, then that means that we create our world. So the world that you're currently living in is in some ways created by you. Now, the reason I started the very first segment of identity with identity theft is because you may look around you and say, well, I don't want this stuff. I didn't want to create this stuff. I don't like this environment. I didn't want to create this. And part of the reason why there may be things around us that we're not necessarily bought into or we feel like we've created is because in some ways our identity may have been stolen. And when our identity is stolen, then other people can speak things into our lives that we believe, like you're not good enough, you can't, etc. And when they do things like that, then if it's accepted, then that brings things into our environment, things into our space, things into our life that we don't necessarily want, right? So that's why we started there. Last week, we then went on to, chat about the 4 major questions of life. And I'm going to come back to creator, being a creator, because I really want to tap into that. I really wish the phone lines were open. So for those of you on Facebook, Periscope, help me out with the questions, because I want to make sure I'm being very clear. All right. But then we went to the 4 questions of life. Okay. And the first question was, who am I? Right? The question of identity. The second question is, why am I alive? Which is the question of purpose. So we talked about this. The third question is, what is my purpose? Right? The question of vision, where we're going to spend a lot of time today. And then the fourth question is, what will I do with my life? Which we'll probably spend a lot of time with in the second hour, the question of potential. Most of us don't tap into our potential, which is one of the things that I talked about, right? And I'm going to talk about that in the second hour. Like, why don't we tap into our potential? And what are the tools that we need to take ourselves to the next level in life, right? To begin tapping into that next level of potential. So that's the other piece. Before I go into all of that, before I begin to dive into all of that, though, Emmanuel, like what have you taken so far? So here you are, you're in the studio, you're representing all the callers and the people in the audience, right? Since they can't call in yet. What are you taking from this conversation of identity? Like, what for you on a personal level has this information done?
Well, this information made me really curious about my identity, not only as a Black man in America, but also where does my story begin in Africa, right?
Okay.
So my parents are immigrants. They're Haitian immigrants. So their ancestors were slaves from Africa that went to Haiti, and then they were born and raised in Haiti, lived there, and then came to America and made a life for themselves.
Got it.
So I identify in America as a Black man, but I also have this heritage that is unknown. And so I've been thinking about, if I do my ancestry test, right, where will it end up at? So that's what I've been thinking about what part of Africa do my people come from? And what does that mean in how I live in the United States now? So that thought is what's been really in my mind as we've been having this conversation about identity and purpose.
And what do you think those answers will do for you? I know on a personal level what they did for me, right? But for you, if you got the answer of, because we can assume that, part of your physical identity and ancestral history or lineage comes from West Africa, right? We can assume that, right? But then as you begin to dive in and you gain more clarity, you'll not only know what region, right? But you'll likely know what country, what tribe. What do you think that would do for you?
I think it would empower me, honestly. I think that what I would learn about my people, I can learn about, like, let's say they were weak people, for example. I can take that and think, how can I be better today?
I can guarantee you they weren't weak.
Yeah, I mean,
The fact that you're here.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's a good point.
The
That's
fact
true.
that you're here,
That's true.
considering what they went through,
Yeah, that's so
I can
true.
guarantee you
You're
that you
right.
didn't come from the stock of weak people.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a good point. That's a good point. And
Yeah.
but I was thinking, I don't know. I was just thinking, like, I don't know what they did for a living,
Right.
but I was just thinking, like, if I knew what they did for a living, wherever
Mm-hmm.
they came from, how does that translate into what I do today? And how can that empower me to continue to go down this route that my ancestors came from?
Got it.
So I think in that sense, it would be an empowering information.
Got it.
Yeah.
And how empowering would it be if you found out that they were in fact very powerful people?
I think that would be like, I honestly, I think I would feel like I have to do something great. I have to do something
Got it.
amazing.
to represent whom it is that you came from.
Yeah.
Got it. Well, and I'm going to tell you that based on my experience, what I've learned, and what I've experienced while other African Americans learn about their physical identity and ancestral linkage, that typically what they find out is something really powerful, right? They're like, "Whoa, those my people, and they did what?" Right? A good example is Deborah Farmer. She was here in the studio, right?
Yeah.
And her lineage is Ghanaian. And she is of the Akan people in particular. While we were there, we learned about the Akan people, we learned about the Ashanti, and we learned things about them. Like, for instance, the Ashanti, the British, the Dutch could not get into the interior of Ghana. I mean, they couldn't. They had guns, they had cannons, right? The Ashanti didn't have these things, but they still could not advance into the interior of Ghana because of the fierce warriors that they were.
Wow.
Right? And the British have it documented that an Ashanti man requires more than one bullet. Right?
Wow.
One bullet will not stop one of these men. Two bullets will not stop one of these men. They continue to come. Right? So she learned that, wow, wait a second, my folks are like that, like they don't stop. Right? And we can think about that literally today. When I step into resistance, am I stopping when my people don't stop? Right? They didn't stop when they had physical resistance coming against them. Why am I stopping? Why am I giving up? Right? So that's in terms of some of the conversations that we shared, what she took away, right? So I can only imagine as you learn more what you may take away. Is there anything else that you gathered?
Let me think. I think that's the main thing.
Okay.
Just the African ancestry thing, and learning how, if I knew that information, how would I live my life differently?
So let me ask you this, and then you're off the hot seat. What about this conversation of you being a creator? Emmanuel Leonard is a creator, right? And so it's his responsibility to create his life, to not only create his life, but also in a lot of ways help create and impact the lives of others, right? I mean, you have a seed of greatness inside of you. So when you think about that, what comes to mind in terms of what may be next, questions, et cetera?
Yeah, I feel like part of my purpose is to be a creator, and so when I say that, though, I recognize that everybody is a creator. So how does my creativity, how does what I create differ from what other people create, and what does that mean in how I influence the world around me?
Got it.
So, I feel like it's something that's more of a question in my mind right now than something I don't really completely understand.
Got
I
it.
know that I have gifts and talents and strengths that God gave me, but I don't know what that means in how I use this creative power that He's given me.
Got it. Let's talk about that.
Okay.
Let's talk about that. So I think that's a great place to pick up on this conversation of being a creator. Because one of the things I noticed about what I shared in the show last week is that I tapped on it, right? This notion of being a creator, but I didn't necessarily sit with it as long as I could have. So thank you, Emmanuel, for that. Because there is this, by the way, the phone lines are open, I believe. Looks like they're open. So 773-591. No, they're not open. Okay, so they're not open. Sorry about that. This notion of being a creator. All right. So let me first start with this idea that if we're a creator, that means we create our environment. That's one of the things I said, right? We create these things around us, right? Often, just about everything that happens is a consequence of who I am, what I've done, what I think, what I declare in my life. Okay. All right. So, the biggest way I established this idea of the fact that we're creators. This is a huge part of our identity. As a matter of fact, this is a huge part of our not just our identity, but the missing link to our identity. Because many of us you don't wake up and think of yourself as a creator, right? But first, let me fundamentally establish why you are a creator, right? Because last week I think that we all agreed, I'm sure someone doesn't, but most of us do. Most of us believe in a God, right? As a matter of fact, I was having a conversation with my wife yesterday. I think we were at breakfast in the kitchen, not somewhere else, right? We're in the kitchen, right? She had cooked breakfast. And we were talking about religion and spirituality, etc. And one of the things I told her, I was like, so you guys know I got kicked out of college, partly because I didn't go to a lot of classes, right? But one of the classes I did go to that I found extremely interesting was the history of world religion this Sunday morning, right? And one of the reasons why, by the way, I'm getting to the point of creator, right? One of the reasons why I was so enamored by this subject is because in the class, the professor and most of the students in the class focused in on the differences of each religion, right? So this religion is different because the men wear turbans and beards, right? And part of the religious garb is a sword, etc. Right? I'm talking about Sikhism, okay? Just bringing in different religions into it, right? Whether Buddhism, Hinduism, there are hundreds of religions, right? The Hindus have multiple gods, right? These different gods all have, different roles that they play for them. Buddha. You have all these, Islam, you have Allah. Christianity, you have God, you have Christ, you have the Trinity. But all religions have some type of deity, right? So I was noticing the common thread. I wasn't looking for, what was different or what was right or wrong. I was just like, what's the common thread here? And every religion had a deity. And each of these deities had creative powers, right? Creation powers in some type of way. Whether it was a community of gods, right? Or one God. All of these gods came together, or the one God came together and created something, which was man. All right? So that's one thread, okay? In most religions. I didn't say all of them, but most of them, okay? Most of the major religions of the world. The second thread that I found very interesting was that in order to be a good performer or a good person in this religion, right? Someone who is considered fully participating in this religion, you must show love. Okay? You must show love to others, and there has to be a healthy dose of self-love and discipline for yourself, right? So the focus of the religion is a discipline of self in a way that's loving, right? Almost all of them talk about the temple or something like that, and how you have to preserve and care for the temple, but also discipline yourself. And then the other part was the demonstration of love that you're supposed to show other people, right? How you're supposed to care for the poor, care for others who are less fortunate, etc., etc., etc. All right? In all these religions, basically the purpose is for you to live a life of love, right? And change the world, impact the world. Okay. Now this was always interesting to me because we tend to focus on the difference of these religions, or which one is right or wrong, or we knock one or the other. But I found it interesting that every religion has these two threads, one of love, right? Gotta love folks, right? In order to be a good participant. And you have to have a certain healthy amount of self-discipline, right? In this practice of loving others, there's also a healthy self-love and discipline. And that in all these religions that the God, the God or the gods were the creator of all. Okay, so these are the threads. So let's keep that in mind and talk about us, right? So that way, I don't care who you are, what religion that you are, you can be a part of this conversation. All right, so if you believe in God or gods, okay, I don't care. Because again, I'm looking at the theme, right? The similarity of these religions. If you believe in deity, right, the divine, or the divine nature of multiple things, whatever it may be, then you believe also that the divine is a creator, right? God is a creator, okay? And you believe that, most of us believe that if God is a creator, that we have a piece of him in us. All right? Emmanuel's still nodding his head. I think most of you guys may be tracking with me. Facebook, Periscope, let me know, okay? Like it if you with me, all right? But God is a creator. You have a piece of him in you. That makes you, if you have a piece of God, a creator. All right? God is a macro creator. That makes you a micro creator. All right? Made in the image of God, like God. Okay? Then there's different texts all through religious. You read the Gita, you read St. Thomas, these different religious texts, right? Not Bibles, but just texts of them explaining their religions. Almost everybody agrees that in this search for identity, that the human man, the human woman is creating his world, creating his circumstance, and creating his situations. Okay? Why? Because we're micro creators. So when we talk about identity, one of the places that we have to start is with your creative abilities, your ability to create what's around you. Now, how do you create this? We started the second segment of last week talking about words with Maya Angelou, right? Maya Angelou talked about the importance of words, how her grandmother spoke into her life, spoke into her life, created into her life with words. All right? So if I'm a creator, then that means I have to be responsible with my words, because when I say things, when I declare things, that means that something happens, something moves, right? Let's think about this. When God says something, something happens. Would you agree?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So if I have a piece of God, right, he's a macro creator, I'm a micro creator, and I say something, good or bad, that means something happens, something moves. Okay? All right. That means if something moves, something happens, I have to be responsible for what I'm saying. I got to be responsible for what is coming out of my mouth at all times. Why is identity such a big deal? Because when you realize that you have the power to create with your words via declaring powerfully into your life, via declaring your goals, but not just that, also speaking irresponsibly, saying things that you really don't mean. When you begin to realize that this is part of your power, this is part of who you are and what you can do, then you have to begin to take responsibility for your identity. But first you must know who you are. You are a creator, right? So now that you know who you are and what you can do, how do you become responsible for that? Well, you become responsible for that by getting curious. Getting curious about if you are here, and you are alive, you possess this power, then why do you possess this power? And to what should you be pushing this power towards? And if I'm pushing this power that I have towards something I don't really understand, something I don't know, then I could be being irresponsible. I could be irresponsible as a result of this, right? And my belief is part of the reason the world is in the shape that it's in right now is because we have these powerful beings waking up every day, going to sleep every night, and they have no idea who they are. They have no idea how powerful they are. They have no idea that they have this creative ability, and so they're irresponsibly creating things around them as a result. And a lot of us are duplicating what we've seen other people create. Let's take the black community for instance, okay? We have been put under such trauma and stress that it is very easy for us as black folks to recreate more of the same. You might say, Linal, I'm getting mad. I didn't create this. Oh, how do you think? What do you say? See, because our language can perpetuate more because we are creators. If you recall, I had a call, I don't know if this was last week or the week before, but on the call, the gentleman just kept talking about supremacy of whites, right? And I don't even want to say it in the way he said it. I'm breaking it up because of the power of language. And I said, let's not say that. Let's say systemic racism. Why did I switch it out? The reason I switched it out, my mother's the one who actually brought this to me. She said, because by saying the very words themselves, you're speaking something that's not true, and then you're recreating it. So this conversation about supremacy of any particular race, when you say it, you drop it out there, and you perpetuate more of the same. Because we're creators. We are creators. That is our identity, right? This has been a setup, folks. This is why I talked about identity for 2 weeks, so that you can be in this conversation with me. All right? Because then I'm a creator. That means that everything that I declare, everything that I speak, I create. So if I'm speaking things like that, I'm creating more of it, right? And if I'm powerful, as many of us believe, man, I'm powerful. I'm mentally powerful. I talked about this, right? I'm mentally powerful. I'm spiritually powerful. I'm physically powerful. If you're powerful and then you're constantly speaking this, then you're powerfully recreating the same thing you don't want. The same thing you don't want, right? This is why positive affirmation is so powerful. You say, Linal, how do you reach your goals? We're going to talk about potential in a moment, okay? But when you talk about potential, part of the way I reach my goals is a very simple routine. And that simple routine, that little small thing that I do, that really is about programming my mind through repetition, is how I can create powerful results all around me, right? What is that? Just simple like reading my affirmations out loud every day. I mean, think about that. If I read my affirmations, I'm looking at my computer right now. I'm going to bring up one of my affirmations and just say it. So one of my affirmations says, I am happy and grateful that I am being my true strength and power in all arenas of my life through the nourishment of my mind, body, and soul. That's an affirmation, all right? So if I'm a creator, let's go back to that. And what I say puts things in action, right? Then what am I doing every day when I say that out loud? You tell me, what am I doing? If I say that out loud every day, I am happy and grateful that I am being my true strength and power in all arenas of my life through the nourishment of my mind, body, And so, what am I doing?
You're encouraging yourself. You're affirming it and making it. You're taking words and making it something real, something that can actually have an effect on your life.
Absolutely.
Right? From the depths of our heart, the mouth speaks, right?
That's right. Life and death is in the power of the tongue.
Yeah.
So I'm speaking it. I'm creating this I'm creating this because I'm a creator. See, the thing is, it's not rocket science, folks. It's not. But it does take discipline. It does take routine. It does take repetition. And it does take being woke. Gotta be woke. So then all you got to do is speak what you want into your life. Because you're a creator. Your identity, your very identity, the DNA of your spiritual makeup is to create. This is why you're under attack. This is why we're under attack. This is why the media is pushing so much information. This is why there's so much entertainment. Because if they can keep you on the very surface of your mind, keep you repeating and saying the things that they want you to say, then they don't have to worry about you powerfully creating things a different way. It's as simple as that. Right? So this is why I say, you got to affirm what it is that you want to create every day. People are like, that's nice. Okay. Right? And then all of a sudden, that simply, you can recreate your entire life. And it's not simple because you're going to come up against resistance. You're going to come up against some resistance to saying it. You can't create without resistance. The two go together. All right, so I got some phone calls because the phone lines are open now. 773-591-1690. Hey, I love y'all because I know y'all probably testing it. When is it going to come back up? I'm going to be the first one. I love it. But I want to make sure you guys are getting this because at the crux of it all, your identity is creator. You create. So let me give you an example. When I'm working with people in coaching, right? I'm like, hey, we have the initial conversations. One of the things that gets in the way is people's current circumstance. And it breaks my heart because they don't even realize that the work we're about to do is so much further than their current circumstance that if they just dived in, they get what they need. Right? But we get so caught up in this physical world, right? This physical identity. I have a colleague, great coach, listens to the show, a mature white man. And, so we've been trading some messages about the show because he's listening to me talk about black identity, all right? And one of the questions he asked me, he said, Linal, I'm concerned that in this conversation that it can become a us versus them. So one of the things I was like, keep listening, all right? And the reason it becomes us versus them is because we get so caught up in physical identity, which is only one aspect of identity. The real self, the real you, is the driver of your physical identity. It's the driver, right? Again, my car sitting right now in the parking lot, right? That is a shell. The car has no power without me. I'm the driver of the car, okay? It cannot move. The car is a black car, all right? It's a black car. So, and it has tinted windows. So when I'm driving down the street, the only way you can identify the car is by saying the black car, all right? No different than most of us are doing with each other right now, right? This is why the elite, the rich, the people who run things keep us in a race conversation. Because as long as we going around saying, ooh, look at the black car, detain the black car. Oh, look at the white car. The white car has special privileges. It can go through red lights. Then we're just being distracted by who's really driving, right? That's where all the power is. All the power is with the driver. And if I as a driver am truly creating what's around me, then I'm not worried about the conversation of what kind of car I'm in. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Why? Because the driver is the creator. It's making sense? The driver is the creator. So I get to create what happens in my life. You might say, well, I bet Martin Luther King didn't create his demise. He didn't want his demise. Let me tell you something about the greats that get killed. All of them say it. All of them say, I don't have long. This might be it. All of them say it. And so at the same time, you might say, well, why did they say it? Some of them can actually maybe feel it, right? They can spiritually feel that it's time to roll. And they're just letting you know. Others, they actually may create it in their lives well before it's time. Watch your words. Watch your words. They say Dr. King had the heart of an 80-year-old. Was it 60 or 80-year-old? Somewhere in there. Either way, he wasn't 80, he was 40. Or 39. Or 40. I can't remember. Anyway, he was young. He was my age. He was younger than me, okay? When he died, with the heart of an old man. So he probably could feel that he had given physically, right? He had driven his car. He had put his car through so much that eventually the driver was going to have to roll and leave the car. You feel me? And maybe that's why he declared it. He said it, just letting everybody know. But the driver is the creator. So when you begin to understand this, then you begin to understand that your physical identity is only one aspect of his identity. He was 39 at death. Thanks, Mom. My mom on Facebook, she helped me out there. You begin to understand that's the only part of your identity. It's only one part of your identity. And there's another part of your identity that many of us are not tapping into. Why? Because it's been stolen. All right, so now that you know who you are, let's take some phone calls. Let's have some conversation about this. Mama D, good morning. You there? Good morning.
Did you see how I created that word? Hallelujah greetings.
Thank you. Thank you.
That means I'm giving you the most high praise greeting I know about.
Oh, wow. And that was to me. Okay, thank you so much. I appreciate that. I receive it. Yes, yes, ma'am. Absolutely. I receive it.
So I don't have to go through life saying, hell, that which is low.
That's true.
Every time I see you, I don't have to bring hell into your space.
Thank you for that. I appreciate
I don't have to have it coming out of my mouth. You know, last week, I'm really loving what you're talking about because as a crime against humanity descendant, Jim Crow genocide survivor, and Native Black American, that's who I am physically.
Right.
And once you kind of get that nailed down, I wanted to go into that next step. You mentioned life, the power of life and death is in the tongue.
That's right.
And then that other part of that is lying tongue destroys the body and the soul. So once I got a handle on who I was,
yeah, that's deep.
when it became, now what do I want to do? How do I stop these lying tongues from destroying the body and the soul?
That's good.
When we as a culture have these institutionalized, legalized lies, I just go up to you and willfully lie and say, hey, and why am I doing that? I'm looking at the firmament. It's the dead part of the year. And I'm going around and said, Happy New Year. But look, the trees are bare, like skeleton bones. The birds are thrown off.
Right.
And I'm seeing this dead all around me. I don't see any green grass. I don't see the newness of life. So I don't think I want to keep on buying into that. So then I started with Happy Yah Year. Yah as in hallelujah. Remember I told you, and you might not, but last week I told you that I went into court and I changed my name.
I remember you saying that. Saying that. Yep.
So, but I remembered reading about Sojourner Truth. she wanted her name coming on the heels from slavery, so she wanted her name. And so she put her purpose in her name. She said, I was sojourner. I just running around telling the truth about slavery.
Moving through this life. I love that. Yep.
So that became
Sojourner truth.
her mission after she defined who she was.
Right.
So when I went into court, I said, these names, that subjugated race name, I can't buy into it, and I want a name where I don't have to keep repeating the lie. And evil eats. I said, but the word doesn't say she was evil. It said she was tricked and she was deceived. And that's different from being evil.
That's
So I
true.
said, well, how do I stop saying that in my identity?
Okay.
So I said, I'm Eve's angel. That's capital E, small v, capital ANGEL. And that means I am, when I'm explaining my name, I said that I am the Eve that's not evil.
Eve angel.
So I put the emphasis on angel and not evil. That's number one.
Okay.
Then Mama D Love. Okay, I went to Institute of Positive Education, New Concept Development Center with Haki and Tisha Matabuchi, and all of their female teachers were called mamas and whatever their first name was, and all the male teachers was named Babas and whatever their first name was. So one of the things, because I had been known as Mama D, I said I want that as part of my name. So my real name, Eve Angel, first name, Mama D Love, second name, because I want to convey that word.
Got it.
And then Yah, YHWH, new being. I said, when the Spirit comes upon you, you become a new being, a new creature. So my last name is YHWH, all caps. I said, I don't have the moral authority to change the name of Yah. I put a capital letter in front. I must spell it the way it is spelled.
Got it.
YHWH, Yah, N-E-W, new B-N. I said, you don't need an E for B, because B is just B, and you don't need an I for N, N is just N. So B-N, what you're supposed to be in. So the last name becomes Yah, new B-N. And every time I wanted to reaffirm the creation name, when I go to a doctor's office or something,
Right.
the people come out with the puzzle look on their face, and I just raise my hand because they don't have a clue.
Right.
And then I have to go into explaining my name. I said, Yah, and then hallelujah.
Love
is
it.
the actual Hebrew sacred names of God.
Wow.
There's no J, never was a J in the Hebrew alphabet. And when the Spirit comes upon you, you become a new creature, a new being.
So go ahead. Go finish
That's
up.
what my name.
So
And it just fits in beautifully, I think.
I love it.
What you're saying.
Yeah, no, it does.
When you
It
find
does.
out who you are physically, you want to know who you are spiritually, and how do you bring that about in your everyday life?
And a lot of what you just shared is the thoughtfulness of it in terms of naming your physical identity, brings in the spiritual piece that we've been talking about for you. So there's a blend.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's what you're talking about.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm talking about. And I love for you, because what I'm hearing from you, Mama D, is that you've personally already gone through this transformation of gaining clarity on who you are physically, tapping into your spiritual identity, and now it sounds like you're at a place where the two are fully connected and you're creating powerfully in your life.
Absolutely, and that's why I can relate and appreciate so very much what you're talking about. And I remembered when I went to Israel, the people said, "You're an American. We don't want to be Americans, but we're more Americans than any anybody in America.
That's right. Yep.
The non-human being status of 246 years of being a property being would not allow us to be anything else.
That's right.
So we got the American names, and when it comes to reparations, we're going to have to identify ourselves. I am a native Black American that is different from an immigrant who came from Haiti and saying they're Haitians, or coming from Nigeria and saying they're Nigerian. They are not saying they are who I am, because they are coming with a country backing them up. And they know that.
In some cases, because some of the islands had some pretty bad slavery as well. So,
I said what I said. We might all have a nucleus in the continent,
right,
because of the bastard size of it. But
or the Western Hemisphere, right.
When I hear somebody says, I'm Jamaican, they usually say I'm Jamaican American, or I'm Haiti, or I'm Nigerian. They name themselves after the country.
Yeah.
And we're the only people on the planet Earth
Who don't, yeah.
that they didn't tell us where they felt us from, so we don't have that.
Yeah, we don't have that.
background.
Yeah, we don't have that. Yep, that's true.
And so what I appreciate about what you're saying, and why I'm very interested in going with you when you go to Africa, is because that's the next part of my journey after going to Israel and seeing that this is my history, this is who I am, and I'm not going to buy into that lie. Every time I open my mouth, all of his people were called by his name: Elisha, Yahshua, Yahshua.
Yeah.
His people
That's
had
real.
his name. And if you're not sometimes I don't agree with it, but people were called bastards because they didn't know they had his name.
Yeah.
Now they're a spiritual bastard if they don't know the Father's spiritual name.
Wow.
With that, I'm going to
Love it. Thank you.
that off.
All right.
Taking my call.
Okay. Wow. She just dropped the bomb and said, all right, goodbye. Wow. Okay, so let me process that real quick, Mama D. Thank you for that phone call. Hey, people say, Linal, you get a call, it's too much time. Y'all get why I listen? Because if you didn't get something out of that, man, she just dropped a lot. And notice, let me tell you something. Notice when you have a visceral response to something that a caller is saying. And the reason I say notice it is because we don't have to all agree. But you should get curious about the things you have emotional responses to. Like, okay, why am I feeling like this right now? Because I know some people are completely aligned with what Mama D just said, and others are like, I don't know. And remember that often when enlightenment first comes, we have a visceral response to it, right? We're like, right? And sometimes we know when we hear something that we don't agree with. What she shared was really powerful. Really powerful. And then she signed off and said, when physically someone doesn't know who their father is, or the parents aren't married, they're called a bastard, right? Because there's a break in identity of some sort, right? You're not of this family, or if you are of this family, you're not of the same mother, etc., right? So they break off the identity, call that child a bastard. And what she said is that many of us, because we don't know our spiritual father, ooh, I love that. We're not in relationship with, or we don't understand our spiritual identity is another way, is that we're functioning in this world as bastards. Which means that we're disconnected from our true identity. In a lot of ways, if you go back to the meaning of a bastard centuries ago, you're also disconnected from your inheritance, which is your power. Whew. Thank you for that. I hope everybody really got that. One other piece that came to mind as Mama D was talking, because she was talking about the name, and part of what she did for herself in naming, so Evangel, Mama D Love, Yahweh, right, is what I heard.
Or Yah.
Yah, okay, all right. So what she did, she was very thoughtful about how she got connected to her physical identity in terms of the spiritual identity. Well, in Africa, by the way, Mama D, if you're interested in going, please go to murdermediocrity.com and register, because the trip is filling up. So if you are interested in going, go to murdermediocrity.com and please register for the trip. We have a conference call coming up Tuesday evening for those who paid and people who are interested. But the only way you get the information is if you register. Okay. But that being said, when you go to Africa, what made me think about that is when you go to Africa and we go through the naming ceremony, part of the naming ceremony is getting very thoughtful about who you are, what day you're born. Like they think about all those things, right? So many names, from, if you think about back in the day, biblical names, African names, etc., those names had a lot. They were loaded. They were loaded with the identity of the person, from the day, from what it is that they, they were prophesied to fulfill. The name had all that on it. And now notice how if someone has a name that has depth, many we're like, whoa, what does that mean? Like, that's too much. When again, remember that the one thing that people are saying on a consistent basis when they refer to you is your name. So they're declaring. So what Mama D has done is she's basically made people, when they address her, declare who it is that she is. So every time somebody addresses her, it is even more solidified because they're creators and they're using their words to identify her. It's becoming even more solid. That's the power of a name. Hey, that's why so many people were upset with Muhammad. The man changed his name to Muhammad Ali from Cassius Clay, and they're like, I'm not going to call you Muhammad Ali. Why was it such a big deal? It was a big deal because he had, in some ways, chosen who he was going to be identified as. He became somewhat linked to his spiritual identity. I don't care about the religion. All I care about is the awakening. He came awake to his spiritual identity, called himself great, renamed himself Muhammad Ali. People got mad. All right. When we come back, we're going to talk about vision. I got phone calls, Milton, BJ, Chris, in that order. I see you. Thank you guys for listening. Stay tuned. It only gets better. Conversation about identity, the missing link to power. My name is Linal Harris. You've been listening to Inspirational Perspective. All right, we're back. You're listening to Inspirational Perspective. I'm your host, Linal Harris, your very own life coach, right here on WVON 1690 AM, the talk of Chicago. Well, we've had a phenomenal conversation. This is part 3 of identity, the missing link to power. If you didn't listen to the first hour, then we really put the link, we connected it, identity to power, in that hour. Great phone call from Mama D. Thank you so much for intimately sharing about yourself, vulnerably sharing about yourself and your own identity and the transformation that you went through. Appreciate that. So I'm going to open up. We have some more callers. This hour, I really want to tap into vision. So now that we know who we are, now that we know we are creators, then what is it that we create? What will we create? Vision is a part of having the layout and the makeup for what is next in terms of creation. But first, let's take some phone calls. Milton, good morning. How are you? Good to talk to you as well.
I made a 71 years old 2 days ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I figure I don't know anything. Because I don't know when I got here, why I'm here, or when I'm going to leave here.
Okay.
Have you ever seen your life pass in front of you?
I haven't. I haven't.
I have.
Okay.
I had when I was 21 years old in Vietnam. I saw my life pass in front of me.
I can imagine. Yes.
So I figured I must have been dead for a few seconds, a tenth of a second, whatever it was,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I can't plan anything because I don't know, and I can't change anything
Mm-hmm.
because once it happens, it's happened. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know if I'm going to live tomorrow. So I can't plan anything. Everything from the time of my conception was meant for me. God gives it to me.
So let me ask you this, Milton. Do you believe that you've tapped into your full potential?
No,
Okay.
I don't believe anything.
So
I don't believe in Jesus. I believe in God.
okay, well, I mean, I'm not even having a spiritual question. I mean, that's not a spiritual question. That's just a simple question. Even if you don't believe in God.
I believe in God. I don't believe in Jesus.
Okay, you believe in God. Okay, so you believe in God, which is fine. I respect your belief. So you believe in God. Do you believe that you've tapped into your God-given potential?
No, I don't know what potential is. I don't know anything. I tell you, I don't know anything. I don't know when I got here. I don't know why I'm here. I don't know what I'm going to leave here.
Okay.
All
Okay.
I know is I love.
Oh, got it. Okay. So for you, it's just really about being love and showing love.
Yes, my mother told me to tell the truth,
Mm-hmm.
always tell the truth, and treat people the way I want to be treated. So that's what I've done all my life.
Got it. Okay. All right. Well, I appreciate the phone call. I appreciate the contribution.
All right.
All right. Thank you so much. Okay. All right. BJ, good morning. How are you?
I'm fine. I'm really fine. Getting better every day. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. I can hear you. Yes, sir.
Okay, listen. I was so blessed to win the ticket to the seminar. It was tremendous. And I really have prayed that Perry Sloan would get a revelation years ago. I promised her to her in the real brief and Matt that they could both become millionaires. And Matt laughed and said, how did that happen? I said, God's going to make you rich. Because you're going to learn about how God made you rich, like you're going to make you thin and Oprah and so many other people like Steve Jobs. You're going to read books about how you did it and you're rich. And he laughed and told Perry that we can tell you it's going to happen. Now, man isn't there anymore, but Perry is. And now, the Creator has said that if Perry be wise enough so that you become a coach and she's doing things that she's going to reach her goals and write a book someday, which is going to happen. And that one book will be a million sellers.
Okay. Okay.
It was really what to speak on is this. One wise thing you mentioned a couple of minutes ago, you were talking about how some people could speak things that will bring forth their own demise.
Right.
What
Right.
I'm going to do is really, I already reached out to do it, is I'm going to become a Bible scholar. I want to learn the very wise things that are written in the Proverbs and also out the scriptures. Because something that came on the air last night on the Tonight Show, a guy called in, he went on about how we're all destined to be exterminated by.
Yeah, I heard that. I was listening to Salim's show last night. I think that was James. Yeah.
Brother James,
Yeah.
I already written the scripture down. In fact, I'm going to write even more down. Like in the book of James, in the Bible, real brief, it says, James 1:5, if you lack wisdom, ask God, he will deliver to you. And Brother James, my heart goes out to him because he too much to do now. And he was spared over there and blessed in many ways. But he's still concerned that we all need to get out of America. And we're running out. But there was one thing that I'll say about this is this. One thing that I want to warn everybody, be careful what you say about number 45. Because you got to respect the office of the presidency. Not only, just because he is president, no matter what. And one thing that I'll throw in, Bible information, sexual sin is not I don't know, it might be a dangerous thing, but it's not grounds to have somebody in peace, okay?
Okay. Okay.
And anyway, what's really deep about this, James is so fearful because one thing I don't know where it's written right now, I'm going to ask you one question when we get off, is that somebody said, be careful what you say because a little bird might hear it and take flight and take it back to someone dangerous. That's true. But where is this written? It also says, forget what we say, not what we pray. James is trying to expound some of those things. But anyway, one of the things I got to ask the question on this. Forgive me because rather than overcoming cancer treatment, chemical, cancer free.
Okay.
The word is in this. One second, I'm just going to
Okay.
One second. Something slowly.
All right. You know, I can't.
For people on ignorant and free, you know.
All right. You know, I can't make out everything that you're saying though. Are you still there?
Yes, the question is, to hope for a man to be both ignorant and free is to hope for that which never was and never will be. Please let me know when that was written and where it came from.
Okay. All right. Thank you for the phone call. And no, I can't. I can't. It sounds familiar, but I couldn't with any real assurity tell you. All right, Chris. Good morning. You're on the air.
Hey, your show is phenomenal.
Thank you
I
so
love
much.
your show. You know, one thing that I always want to talk about is the Black American culture and its uniqueness.
Okay.
It's this saying, and it's arranged in several ways. The saying is, you're never a prophet in your own town. Some people say you're never a prophet in your own land. Some people say you're never a prophet in your own country. Right?
Yeah.
That's a very true statement. And so, you know, one thing that when we talk about Black American culture, we always say we don't have that. Jamaicans have this, or Haitians have this, or when you think about that, we actually just negate what we do have. Because if we were to go as Black Americans anywhere, we would have a distinct culture that would keep us together, that we could pretty much see that is an American right there.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But when we in America, we always say, oh, you know what, the Jamaicans have this, or the people from Colombia have it, that's why they're able to succeed. That is not true. The reason why they're able to succeed is a couple things. One, the majority of people that come here from other countries, more than likely are the elite of those countries. Just think about this. To get up to and go to another country to start a new life, that person already have a particular drive that other people don't have.
Absolutely. I mean, if you listen to the story of many immigrants, you're like, whoa, the resistance they encountered just to leave the country that they were in is So absolutely. I get with you on that. Now, real quick before you continue though, let me provide my perspective on why I believe individuals, even though they may have gone through, you know, the same post-traumatic, they have the post-traumatic slavery syndrome in some ways, or they went through slavery, but, you know, Jamaicans, Haitians, etc. The reason why I'm talking about identity is because when you have something to anchor yourself to, even if it's just your physical identity, it makes a difference. So you know that. So believe it or not, there is a difference. I mean, a Jamaican American, the fact that they can say I am Jamaican, and Jamaicans have a distinct culture, right? I mean, then that gives them something. And I agree with you that Black Americans have a distinct culture. What we suffer from is that it's not most of the greatness that we give to this country is then appropriated, right? And it is not really, there's no real ownership given back to us. I'll give you a perfect example. If I say Yaman, right? We both know that's a Jamaican phrase, right? Jamaicans own that phrase. But if I said something very simple, I heard a white comedian say, oh, come on, dog, you know, something like that. Well, we all know that came from Black cultural, hip-hop culture. Like, we all know that that's a Black cultural way of, you know, saying things, right? It's a twist on it, but it gets appropriated. And so then we don't necessarily get to own it anymore. I mean, if you recall, 2008, Barack Obama, President Obama, fist bumps his wife, right? Which was Black cultural. I mean, that was created in Black culture. And the media was in a frenzy about this, right? How dare he? And then 9 years later, they've taken it. They're like, that's ours. What are you talking about? That's an American thing. That's not just Black. It's everybody, right? It's taken.
You know, and I agree with you.
Yeah.
I totally agree with you. But check this out, though. That shows you the power that we have. We have to switch the way we look at things.
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
because
absolutely.
The phrase you said, yeah, man, right?
Right.
That's 100% true. But then racism, and it gets appropriated, that phrase, and other things like tacos. Tacos got appropriated to some people, a place called Chipotle. Like,
right. true.
Like the
That's
white
true.
man created tacos.
Right.
But as my friend I always say, there's tons of places in Little Village and that have better tacos than Chipotle, but that got appropriate.
Tons.
But
Yeah.
But when you look at this though, when you look at this, that shows you the power that we have. And so I think that we have to do a better job of showing what the history behind what we do and what we have in our contributions.
And owning our creations.
And
owning our creations.
Listen, brother, that is the most powerful thing you said right. Listen,
Yes.
That's the most powerful thing you said all morning.
And I hope people get it.
That's the most powerful.
I hope people get it.
That's the most, listen, that right there, that last statement you said, that's the most powerful thing you said all morning. Because think about it. If you own your creations, you own your identity, you own your strength, you own everything. And then people cannot, even though they attempt to culturally appropriate your creation, you still know that you own it.
That's right.
And one thing about, and I'm systematic racism. One thing about systematic racism, it has you believe that what you have is not valuable.
Yes. Yes.
You see what I'm saying?
Yes.
Systematic racism. That's the basis of systematic racism.
Yep.
Is first to cause division and then make you feel that you as a person and what your culture has
Is not valuable.
is not valuable. But then they would take it and create value in it.
All the time. make millions of dollars. Last night I was switching. This is gonna make somebody angry, but I'm gonna say it. Last night I was switching the channels, right? And they had this special on about Elvis Presley and how Elvis Presley brought the jiggle and the wiggle to mainstream America, and how the songs he sang were so. And I'm like, man, no, he stole most of his songs and he stole his moves from Black America.
Yeah.
Absolutely not. He just happened to be a white man that basically exposed what he had learned from black people that he hated, by the way, right? Black people. He stole it, and the first white man to go out there and do it. So Elvis, he could have been duplicated because all he did was duplicate.
All he did was duplicate it.
Yeah, and I know somebody mad right now, but it's true. But it's true.
They do that, but listen, but check this out though. They do that with everything. Listen, all piece of everything that we have.
Yeah.
They just make it and make us feel that it's not good. From the tattoos, which pretty much African tribalism. That's positive. They, tattoos, twerking.
Well, it's identity. It's part of identity. Yeah.
Twerking is not bad, but they make us think it's bad. Let's check this out. Jazz, blues, hip hop, all those genres of music, they made us think all those genres of music were bad. And then they took it over, and then now everyone trying to on a jazz club.
Yeah.
And we got whole radio stations just based on jazz and hip hop.
When it first came out, you're right, it was bad.
They made us feel like it was totally bad.
No, good points, man. Good points.
We have to own what we have, what we create, and then we can say, you know what, we can fight systematic racism. But until we start owning what we have as Americans, we have to own what we have as Americans. Until we do that, we're not gonna win.
Yeah, no, I firmly agree. Chris, thanks so much for the comment.
Okay.
Yep. We have to own what we create. Chris, thank you for that phone call, man. And one of the things that came to mind for me was when I first went into business for myself, and I started Inspirational Perspective. I started Murder Mediocrity. I started Insights for Life Coaching. By the way, I'm still fighting for the name Insights for Life Coaching. I'm still fighting for that name. And let me tell you what I mean in terms of owning your creations, because I think this is important. Inspirational Perspective, when I came up with that name, I was surprised that nobody else had it, right? And because, I didn't create the words, but I created the combination, right? I said I need to trademark it. Somebody asked me, why are you going to spend that money on trademarking that, man? Right? Well, because I came up with it. So I need to own my creation. And listen to me real good, everyone, okay? So one of the problems we have, and Chris called this out, is when we do create, we don't honor what we create, right? And if you're a creator and you have vision, this is a really good segue into vision. then if you see something into the future, right, which is vision, then you have to begin acting on it today. Acting on it today, right? So it wasn't about, man, trademarks cost a lot of money. It was about what's the vision for Inspirational Perspective? What's the vision for Murder Mediocrity, right? And if I have a vision and I plan to deliver my purpose through these vehicles that I own, these entities that I own, then I need to protect them with trademarks. Right now, both Inspirational Perspective and Murder Mediocrity are registered trademarks that I own. Okay? Well, to be even more specific, I own Inspirational Perspective. Inspirational Perspective owns Murder Mediocrity. Right? But either way, they're creations that I own. I made that investment based on my vision. All right? Now, take it one step further. Insights for Life Coaching. I created that name as a coaching company. There's a company out of Britain that's named Insights, it's a consulting organization. They are fighting me, right, for the ownership of that word. I'm just making a point. They're fighting me for the ownership of that word, right? So my attorney is conversing with their attorney through the, U.S. Trademark and Patent Association, right? And we're all working it out in terms of language and things I may need to put on the bottom of my website. I will eventually own Insights for Life Coaching, right, as a trademark. But I'm saying this because somebody took ownership of the word insights and they're willing to fight for it. Right? Now, very, very simple analogy I'm about to make, but what is it that you've created that you're not even fighting for? If you're a creator and you've created something, what is it that you've created that you're not even fighting for? Another point on creation and vision, because part of what we're going to talk about this hour is vision. When I created Murder Mediocrity, I remember the first time I said it, the first time I shared it on the airwaves, the first time I started promoting it, people had two different reactions. One was, wow, I love it. Other people were like, oh man, that's horrible. You shouldn't say that. Right? And I had to go through my own internal conflict of the fact that I couldn't please everyone based on what I had created. Right? And I'm sharing this because I want you to get the similarities for whatever it is you're working on in your life. All right? There came a point where I was under so much resistance mentally and spiritually where it was difficult for me to even put the t-shirt on because I was concerned about what people might think. But when I penned the words murder mediocrity, I knew why I did it. And so part of what I had to do was get completely clear on why I created it in the first place. And the more clear I came about my own creation, the more powerfully I could step into it and support it. My own creation. So this is one of the reasons why stuff gets stolen. Because we create it, and then we get scared of our own creation, we back off of it, and somebody say, oh, you didn't want that? I'll take it. And then we come back and say, oh man, I had such a phenomenal creation. Why didn't I own it? Why didn't I keep it? But the reason why is because many of us, we may have the creative ability, right? You tap into your ability as a creator, but what's your vision? What is your vision for that creation? When God created what he created, he had a vision. So he knew when it was going off path, right? Or when it's on path. He had a vision for it. What's your vision? What is your vision for what it is that you're creating? So now we're clear on your identity, right? This is no longer a conversation about identity. So then the next question becomes, all right, creator, what's your vision? What is your vision for what it is that you should or will create? What's your vision? And by the way, one of the reasons why powerful people never truly exhibit or step into their power is because they lack vision. They lack vision. what is your vision, right? Well, you might say, well, Linal, how do I get aligned with my vision? Well, the alignment of your vision, the beginning of your vision starts with your purpose, right? So now that you know who you are, now that you know why you're alive, if you don't, I have tools on murdermediocrity.com that you can purchase or even download for free that will help you, okay? Go there, check it out. But now that you know these things, or you're going to learn these things, then what do? Well, then you start to gain clarity on your vision. Now, once you have your vision, that means then you have to begin to take steps aligned with the vision. This is where most people begin to mess up. Because while you have a vision for your life, so does somebody else. Sometimes it's your parents. Sometimes it's your teacher. Sometimes it's the principal. Sometimes it's your boss. They have a different vision for you, right? They see what it is they want you to do, right? Because it's aligned with the vision they have for their life. Not your life, for their life. Right? So the reason your purpose is so important, because your purpose puts you on a path to then begin to walk into and create your vision. It's that simple. It's that simple. So real quick, because I said I was going to talk about vision and life's compass. I see the phone calls. By the way, Art, you're next, and then Bobby, Marie, and Sel. See you. But first, let me talk about life's compass. So one of the reasons many of us never fully tap into the potential we have for our life is, one, we don't know our purpose. But then when we do know our purpose, we're not making decisions aligned with that purpose. What do I mean? I've talked about this before, okay? What are your passions? See, the thing about a passion is that a passion has a spiritual nature to it, right? You're spiritually aroused when you're passionate about something, okay? So when I'm passionate about something, not only am I physically creating, I'm spiritually creating. This is why when I talk about purpose and getting aligned with your passions is so important. Because now, if you're working on or creating from a place of passion, there's a physical and spiritual alignment, right? Passion, there's a spiritual stirring. So as you're working, then there's a spiritual stirring, right? I'm passionate about teaching. I'm passionate about what it is that I do. So you're not just experiencing a physical Linal, you're experiencing a physical and spiritual Linal that is fully connected and communicating with you from a special place of power. My spiritual substance. Why? Because this is one of my passions. This is why it has a power or resonance to it. All right? Because it's aligned with the passion. What are your passions? What are your top 3 passions? Then, my vision is also, what comes into the vision is my talents and my strengths. What are my talents? What are my strengths? At the Murder Mediocrity Summit, I talk on this deeply. I'm not going to spend a lot of time today, but I taught on this deeply. Your talents are the things you are naturally endowed with. You were born with them, right? I said on another show before, I'm curious about my son's talents. What are his talents? Why? Because these are his natural endowment. These are his gifts just because he's alive. What are those talents? Why? Because my job as a steward of his soul, that's what I believe parenthood is. We're just stewarding. I'm not the boss of him. I'm a steward. Okay? So as a steward, I don't get to put my stuff on him. I don't get to put my vision on him. What I should be doing as a steward is asking questions and being curious about his passions, his talents, his strengths, so then I can help guide him to where it is he's supposed to go so he can create his own vision for for his life. See, part of the problem is we be trying to control too much. Can't even control ourselves. How are we going to control our children? Right? I'm a steward. So, as a steward, I'm going to teach him about life's compass, not my compass, his life's compass, right? His purpose, his passions, his talents, his strengths, so that way he can identify the roles he wants to play and make his decisions accordingly, as we all should be doing. All right, that's life's compass. Your purpose is your potential. And your purpose is your potential because that's where you get your vision from. All right, so let's talk about vision. But first, I'm going to take a few phone calls. And then I'll end the show with vision. Boy, it might be an identity part 4. I like it. Good morning, Bobby. How are you?
Good morning. How you doing, my brother?
I'm good, man.
Man, you got the best show on the radio. You know, let me show you something. You opening up the pineal gland over there. Now, you know you're not supposed to be doing nothing like that so people can get powerful. So let me share this real quick. You know, you were talking about how you were 23 and you felt like you were dead in.
That's right, yeah.
No, you were not. You had, check this out. Do you know that opportunity always meets that guy that is prepared? You had everything you needed at that age.
I didn't know it. I didn't know it.
About whitewash education from other sources.
Yeah.
You have everything you need within yourself.
I agree.
Once you recognize your talent, those 10 gifts you given by the Most High that you know about. Once you develop them within your own self, you're a powerhouse. But see, there's very few people going to teach from the pineal gland position. Most people are teaching from outward, trying to tell you to be like everybody else. No, you are who you are. You don't need to be like them.
That's right. You're an individual, special and unique.
We try to follow other people. You know, we had a discussion on this. How often do the people that call themselves loving you really know which direction you're going in? They don't. They tell you something, just like you see your parents can direct you thinking you should be doing this.
Right.
But you already know your direction and you know your purpose on this planet.
That's right.
So once you know that, who can touch you? You can also teach it for free now and give it to people.
That's right.
You could have been a millionaire and had it all for yourself. But what value is that when you can share and open up the eyes of so many people? Thank you, my brother.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. Yeah, thank you for the phone call. Phenomenal phone call. All right. All right, good morning. How are you?
Good morning, young man. How are you, sir?
I'm well.
Good. That's why the Nation of Islam used the phrase, accept your own and be yourself. And when you are speaking on a lot of these things, I find it amazing how people forget about the most honorable Elijah Muhammad, because everything that you are saying and pretty much conveying is the psychology or the teaching of the most honorable Elijah Muhammad. Because he teaches us, accept your own and be yourself. Teaches us there's 196,940,000 square miles of land and water that belongs to the black man, the righteous man. So I find it quite interesting if we wouldn't reject ourselves. A lot of these things would be much, much further. Another 2 points. I'm so opposed to anybody calling any human being the word bastard, because there's no such thing.
I agree with you. I agree with you.
Every child has a father, and whether he knows him personally or not, that's just a total language.
Yeah. So, Art, let me make sure, because I'm happy you brought that up. Did you understand the context with which we were using that?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. All right. Good.
You want to make sure that no one else uses that. And then also, what you're saying is basically code of conduct help shapes identity. If there's no code of conduct in your community or in your family, and I call in and tell everybody this, until we come up with a collective code of conduct for our community, that all the so-called organizations and all the young people who's supposed to be in charge, where all of us agree, this is a code of conduct which will help shape identity. And I agree with you about our culture also. So black people is the culture.
So hold the culture. Come back to the culture, because what you just said was really powerful around code of conduct. And by the way, my brother and I so that you know, we both had sons in the last couple of years, right? And so we were talking. Actually, all three of so it's three of us. So all of us have had sons in the last few years, actually. And so we've been talking about, okay, as fathers and men, how do we adequately preserve our legacy while allowing, so we have a stewardship for our sons, right? But then also allowing them to develop and grow based on who they are as individuals. And one of the things that we've been talking about is developing a family creed, right? Which is basically a code of conduct, right? And by the way, so what you said was really powerful. That resonated with me. And by the way, when you look at families like names that have withstood world wars, right? Still wealthy, still powerful. All of them have family creeds. You do your research, you can go find them. The Rockefellers, the Rothschilds, right? Family creeds, right? And by the way, the creed ain't two sentences. Like, these children had to learn a page worth of conduct in terms of, you are a Rockefeller, and so you conduct yourself this way, you behave this way, you associate with one another a certain way as well.
Right, and the problem that we are having as black people in our community, we are trying to be everything except ourselves.
Yeah.
And then when someone else outside our community emulate what they see in our community, then somehow it becomes popular. But if you accept yourself, then you'll be fine. And I'm
That's
telling
right.
you all,
That's
I
right.
swear to you, as God is my witness, if those men and women who are in the organizations who have the mic would sit down and come up with a 12-point code of conduct that all people in these places participate in, that we can govern and begin to change the trajectory of our community, then we can hold each individual family accountable. So the code of conduct, and we have to put our family back together. Because the head of the family instills code of conduct, direction, and purpose. That's the only way we're going to be able to really move. Everything else that we're doing, I'm telling people, talking about the president, all of that stuff has no relevance on your community.
No, not at all.
Do not put it together.
Not at all.
May God bless.
Thank you so much for the phone call. Powerful phone call. Thank you for that, Art. Wow. Code of conduct. Creed. Matter of fact, I wrote the first draft of the creed 2 weeks ago and gave it to my brother. We are actively working out the code of conduct for Harris's. I mean, and what he said was so profound, so important, even in terms of culture. But you have to see our code of conduct, right? Part of what we're doing is saying there's an identity in being the son, our sons, or our, offsprings of us as Harrises, right? And as a result of that, since you are part of your physical identity is that, then you will be indoctrinated to be aligned with this creed, which is a code of conduct for our sons, right? Who they will be, how they will show up. And again, the reason why I thought that was important, one is to establish a family constitution in some ways, code of conduct. But number two, because when I look at the greats have done it. And it seems to be working for the greats. And I want to be great. I want to create and establish a great legacy. And I believe most of us do. Might not have the balls to say it, but most of us do. What was that?
There's a question. Someone is asking, do you train coaches?
I do. I have trained coaches. I haven't done it much lately, but I have in the past. Reach out to me, inbox me. Okay, let's see. And there's some phenomenal training programs as well for people who are interested. All right, I got Marie. Good morning.
Good morning, and thank you for accepting this call. It was just that accident that I tuned in, and I want to jump in on everything that you're saying.
Well, it can't be an accident anymore. You have to start planning on it.
I'm telling you, it's awesome. The whole conversation, I hope I'm able to lend something to my experiences. I'm 72.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I started having, I won't say visions, but when I was 18, I was 18, and this idea came to me. I'll be singing for kings and queens. I didn't know anything about it. I left the country, and I went to Europe, and I literally began to sing for the Prince of Morocco, his wedding. And then I sang for Prince Charles and his dad and his sister. I sang for the royal family.
Wow.
Then I was introduced to, in some way, to Prince Charles. It became a scandal because he wanted me to sit next to him at the next dinner. They were having fundraisers, and he took a fancy to me. I had a living boyfriend, and it got in the newspaper, and I said, I'm out of here. So
I gotta get back home so I don't get in trouble, huh?
I went to Germany,
Okay.
and I remember meeting a sister. She had a high school diploma, and she said before she left Florida, she said she wanted to marry a doctor. So when she arrived in Paris, her mother was a singer. The mother was living in Sweden, and she was walking down the street, and there was this Swedish guy, and he was a gynecologist. They fell in love and they got married. So I said, if it's that easy, this is spoken word. I said, then I wanna meet a dentist. So then I started meeting a dentist. We have power, and we're not even using it. Instead of thinking about what the white man has or what the white man is, white man ain't got nothing. We are all human beings and creators of our universe.
Amen to that.
So I was, and the Father is, I had no idea about, I always thought God was outside of me, and I was praying, and I didn't know He was hearing my prayers, but everything I asked for, I said, I want to win this contest. I would win it. So I was focusing on music and jazz and blues, and I said, I want to make this kind of music that's going to be universal, that will bring people together, and I want to have this certain kind of sound. I began to do this, and the words came, the music came, everything is intact. I later learned after coming to the States a couple of years ago that many of my, let's say, what do you want to say, my music, my arrangements and things had been stolen by my brother. He had a very jealous wife. Well, at some point he must have been jealous too. So they collected things and tried to sell it over the internet. But I said in my mind, I said they'll never have any success. Nobody's going to buy it. And literally, they have no success. So we, as creators, we have power to speak.
Absolutely.
And to X out anybody that tries to take us over.
Absolutely.
I changed my name from Rose Wortham to Maria Tahila, Perfect Peace, Ogu. So that means, Tahila means a psalm or a prayer. Maria, of course, God's mother was Mary, and all the Marys, they gathered around Christ at the cross. And perfect peace is the same. Christians say that instead of saying shalom in Jewish or assalamu alaikum.
Right.
So it's peace goes with me. And when people say, "Oh, Sister Perfect Peace," oh, here's Perfect Peace is on stage now. Well, they're not only saying that, but they're getting perfect peace in their life.
Wow.
So everything has to be thought out, and it's just like Sojourner Truth. She said that.
Yeah, Mama D shared that, yeah.
Now, I'm gonna tell you something else very powerful. When I realized I had connected with God, one night I was practicing Buddhism, and the Holy Spirit woke me up. I didn't know about a man in the room. I'm only in the room sleeping with my daughter, and this voice said loud and clear, "Wake up, somebody's gonna try to give you cancer." I said, well, I don't know who that is, and I began to chant, Nam Myoho Renge Kyo, Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. So I said, okay, I'm finished doing that, now I'm going to go to sleep. Then I heard a voice say to me, Maria, you got cancer. I said, I ain't got, and I used the S word. So I woke up out of fear, I got the cancer. But name is going back to where it came from. What happened was I started, because I changed my name to Jahala, I started doing gospel concerts. So this is power. Word has power and direction.
Wow.
So I started doing these gospel concerts, and a sister, Trinidadian, she had been baptized. I went to her house to spend the night because we were doing rehearsal. Each night I was there, I got a healing. I asked her, what's this church? Where is this church? I got a healing every night I've been there. She says, this is not a church, it's the kingdom of God. We believe God and the Father is Christ, and the Father is here on earth. I said, well, give me something. As I read it, I felt an euphoria come over me, and I fell asleep happy. So one of the women that were working on the concert with us, she asked me in the dream, she said, who is it? I said, I know, but I ain't going to tell you. I didn't know nothing, but this is how God does things. So to make a long story short, I'm here, and when I discovered that my brother had literally wiped me out, my bank account out, and he had did something to my mother, which he says, here, she's not doing anything with her money. You take it and you spend it. So they spent it, bought houses, had houses built and whatnot. And as I try to get back to Europe, the Holy Spirit told me, he said, you tell your mother that if you have to borrow money from somebody, I'm God Almighty and I can do something. That's the hardest thing for me to do was to tell her that. You know, God said that if I have to borrow money to get back to Europe, you're in trouble, because I don't want to know what he's going to do. But I know that if I don't tell him, I will be held responsible. So I said it.
Right. Wow.
So, to make a real long story short,
We got to wrap up the show.
I know you got to wrap it up. He is powerful. We all have the Creator in us. Woman is part of this creation that man has.
That's right.
And for 9 months, my daughter incubated in my body. I can hate or I can love. My mother showed me and sent me books about things to teach my daughter while she was yet unborn. When she came out, I read books to her that I was reading. So what I want to say is that we're on the brink of our success.
Yes.
The same thing that you're teaching is what you're supposed to be doing right now. And everybody in the world, whether they're tuned in on the radio or the radio is off, we are all under one frequency, the black man and the black woman, because God has put us here for this reason, to lift us up. Instead of us tearing ourselves down and being a figment of somebody else's imagination, we are now, God has put us, what he did for the Israelites, he will do for us and more. And so we are walking, we need teachers like you.
I appreciate that, yeah.
For this experience to tell you, but everything you're saying is right on. I give thanks and glory to God for your ministry, because it is a great ministry. And you might not see it as that, but it is empowering to the people. And it is wake up time.
Absolutely.
Folks, we've been sleeping too
Wake
long.
up time. Yeah, you're right about that. Well, Marie, thank you so much for sharing yourself that way, and keep listening, okay?
God bless you.
All right. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Awesome. Wow. I mean, she said a lot. That's why I keep listening, because I mean, and it's affirming a lot of things that is already shared through her, her own personal story, and what she experienced in her life, how words, affirmations impacted her life. Yeah, it's interesting too. What I love about the listeners, I love you guys. What I love about you all is you all come from so many different walks of life and beliefs. But when you call in and you share, what you're sharing has a very similar thread. I mean, these are people who are creating their lives and affirming what it is that I've been sharing with you all. So thank you so much. Last call is Sale. Good morning. How are you? We only got a few minutes. Only a few minutes, brother.
Thank you. I want to affirm what Mama D was saying this morning. I have enjoyed a spiritual oddity. For this woman to say that, to describe a bastard in the form of us being spiritual bastards was just illuminating, explosive.
Yeah, that was really powerful.
Last week I recognized her for being one of our spiritual conduits in this community. And to deny her anything short of that is
Yeah.
Someone called in behind her and said that he wanted to call in to make sure that nobody repeated it. Well, then I'm going to repeat it from now on. I'm grateful that you brought that thought to our spirit.
Well, what he said is, just to kind of to be fair to Art, is that he doesn't believe that there are any bastards in terms of the fit, like in terms of how we relate to people who don't know their father or the parents weren't married.
Let me have all due respect, believe me, I know the full extent of the definition.
Yeah.
But this is a brother who has nothing to say but what other people should be doing.
Okay.
I appreciate his concept. I appreciate his concept about a code of conduct. But I invite that brother for him to write down 12, as opposed to suggesting what other folks should do. And he work on that as his personal project and see what type of support he might get from the WBON audience.
That's a phenomenal response. And you know what? Yeah, what I hear you saying is ownership. And I hope when a brother hears it, that it might trigger him a bit, but I hope he can get past it and step into it, because we could use it. If it's his, what I hear you saying is, if it's his burden, it's also his gift and creation to bear.
I'm asking him to play God, small G, create something, as opposed to designate.
I like that. Hey, Sel, thank you for that. Thank you for that. And you know, that's good coaching for Art. That's good coaching for me, and I think that's good coaching for every listener, man.
When we started out this morning, I was at the office. I had to create in North London. We met the kids. I was enjoying the way the office looked. I created an environment where I told staff, I can't get you downtown right now. But when you come into this office, it's going to look as though you're downtown, and it does. Because of my creativity.
Yeah.
I appreciate you.
Same here, brother. Thank you for the phone call.
Yeah.
All right. Well, hey, phenomenal show. Thank you all for your phone calls. Thank you for your contributions. Those of you who just listened, thank you for listening. Thank you for the support. Identity Part 3 next week. Identity Part 4. But I'm gonna take it a little further, because then we're gonna begin to talk about, now you have the vision. How do you create the vision, right? So I want to leave you with a few questions around self-actualization. Because really what we've been talking about is this term, or this idea of self-actualization. That's really what identity is, right? When I say self-actualization, the definition of that is the realization or fulfillment of one's talents and potentialities, especially considered as a drive or a need present in everyone. All right, so that's what I mean. You know your identity. We've kind of had this conversation about self-actualization. And so I want to leave you with a few questions. Pull out your pen and paper and write these questions down. First question is, what action will you take to begin powerfully tapping into your purpose? What action will you take to begin powerfully tapping into your purpose? Right? Because again, remember, purpose supplies the vision. Getting you ready for next week's segment. Purpose provides the vision. Number 2, what are your top 3 passions? What are the top 3 things that arouse you spiritually to create? Begin operating from that place. That's the second question. Question number 3, what are your top talents? What are those gifts, those endowments that you've been given that are part of your identity that will allow you to go out and powerfully create? That's the show. Those are the questions. And once again, I appreciate you guys for listening. Last question. What passion or talent will you fully express starting today? Start today, folks. You've been listening to Inspirational Perspective. I'm your host, Linal Harris. Love each and every one of you. Tune in again next week at 7 a.m. Go to murdermediocrity.com for more information. Have a phenomenal day and a wonderful week.